What's up, y'all? I think today's just going to be a pretty quick video. I wanted to touch on Divvy's Credit Builder Card. So they had reached out to me a couple weeks ago about their new card that they were releasing for people who were having trouble getting approved for the standard Divvy card. So I know a lot of you guys reached out to me and told me that, you would apply and then you either wouldn't hear back or, you just weren't getting approved based off of what their current, underwriting process or standards were, right? And so with that, I think they've kind of probably got a lot of that input from a lot of people and decided to roll out a credit builder card. Okay. So I think the landscape's changed quite a bit. Some of you guys might be familiar, but they actually did go through an acquisition. They were purchased by a company called Bill.com, which is a pretty big company. I'll try to include some articles down below so you can kind of learn a little more about that. But I think what they're trying to focus on now is acquiring as many customers as possible, right? So getting as many people to use and leverage their platform as they can. And that is evident by the credit builder card that they've decided to roll out. Now, in terms of this card, this business credit builder card, or the first thing we kind of touch on Divvy, if you guys haven't actually, used Divvy at all before, right? Divvy is pretty much just an expense management platform. It's sort of an expense management platform combined with a corporate card, right? And the idea is you run all your expenses through that card and you're able to keep track of it with the platform and see where, where you're having like leakage or, where you're overspending and just being able to see what's going on with your funds, right? Because a lot of times I think what happens is as you're growing as a company, you start signing up for a lot of programs or software where you got to pay subscriptions and things like that. And there's situations where you might not be using all the subscriptions and end up losing money, but you're not really seeing it. And this platform makes it great because you're able to see all your transactions in one place. And that to me is a huge game changer, right? So you're able to just keep track of your expenses. And the other thing is you're not no longer mixing business and personal expenses. So a lot of times what happens is, especially when you're first starting off a business, right? You might be paying things with your regular credit card, right? Or your regular debit card, whatever it is. But you want to get away from that as soon as you can because it just makes it a lot cleaner, especially during tax time, right? And so it gives you an easy business card for you to be able to get, right? So that was really what sold me on it. On top of that, right, you got a corporate card with no personal guarantee, which you're not going to get any business credit cards typically aren't going to allow that, especially from the bigger banks. And they didn't run your social, right? It was based off of your banking transaction or your banking history. And so that was the gist of Divvy. Now they had the other card, but a lot of people are having trouble getting approved, right? I've seen other videos shot that talked about approvals as high as $400,000 for the actual corporate card. And so I think that's what enticed a lot of people to sign up, but people are just having issues when it came to actually getting approved. Now, when it comes to the benefits of this actual credit builder card, it is quite literally just like their regular Divvy card, right? The one where you actually get a, unsecured line. But the difference with this is it's just secured, right? It means you put down however much money you want to use on the card, right? And then they'll give you access to be able to use those funds. Okay. Now, the benefit of this is that one, it's an easy way for you to get a business card, no matter what type of credit issues that you might be dealing with, right? And it reports to your business credit. So it's going to report to, the Small Business Financial Education, SBFE, right? And it's also reporting to Duns & Bradstreet, right? So that pretty much covers you in that aspect. I've shot a video on my experience so far with the Divvy card. You can actually check that out. I'll link to it down below. Basically I've had the Divvy card, I think at this point, it could be close to a year at this point. And I kind of had done a little update after, I think it was like 6 months or 5 months of using it. And I'll link to that where you can check that out and hear my experiences in terms of me using their virtual cards. Which is a feature you still have access to with this credit builder card that you get as well, where you can create a bunch of virtual cards. So really, I don't really like to look at it as like a credit builder card. I like it to look at it more as like a credit builder account per se, because you can still, create employee cards. You can still, create a bunch of virtual cards if you want to do that. You still have access to all the features of the regular Divvy card. The only difference is really that you just don't have the credit line. Okay. But when it comes to it graduating they do mention that eventually you will be moved up to having an unsecured credit line, but they don't really give a time frame or anything like that. I venture to guess it's kind of based off of your banking history and how much you're using the card, or it might be a situation where you can reach out to them and then they can, put you through the underwriting process again to see if you'll get approved at that point. So really what I would look at is as your revenues continues to grow, then you want to reach back out to them and say, hey, look, this is how much I'm doing in terms of transactions. Can I get my deposit back and, get switched to unsecured? Okay. So that's pretty much how I look at this card. Now, who is this card actually for? I think it's going to be for, people who are looking to build their business credit long term, right? That's the most important part, right? I wouldn't expect for you to have access to a ton of capital because of this card. It's not a situation where, you get to secure the credit builder card and then 2 months later, they're giving you a $10,000 limit or something, right? I think it's going to be more so for people who are looking to, they're looking more long term at this. Anyways, besides that, to me, that's even besides the point because it's a credit builder card. You're not supposed to be carrying over a balance on these cards. It's really supposed to be made to pay off at the end of the month. Okay. So just something for you guys to think about a little bit. This credit builder card is good for people who have issues with credit in the past. So if you have, issues with your business credit, you have issues with your personal credit, then this card's going to be a lot easier of a place to start with, right? On top of that, this is great for businesses with employees, right? Or if you're a solopreneur that wants to kind of get control of your expenses and start building that business credit. Those are two other segments, right? The businesses with employees, you never want to give your employee let's say you had one credit card. No matter how much you trust your employee, it's kind of like a risk management type of thing. You don't want to give your employee the only company credit card that you have, right? The issue being is, and it's not even more so like theft from your employee. It's more so like, what if something happened, right? Your employee was robbed or your employee dropped the cards, things like that, right? Then you're putting a little bit of liability in your business. Whereas with Divvy, you can actually create or, generate an employee card. So he has that employee, they have their own card where you set a budget on that card that no matter what, that card can only go up to $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month, whatever it is, right? So that's a plus on it, right? And that's really the gist of it. Now, I did want to touch on one thing. I think I'm going to start talking about this repeatedly through my business credit videos because I want people to understand, I've seen a lot of advertisements and I've had a lot of people reach out to me about these. You've probably seen ads that kind of touch on, someone will say, hey, I want to teach you how you can get access to 100,000 to 150,000 in business credit for your new business, right? Which if you really think about it, it doesn't sound reasonable, but it sounds too good to be true. But, you want to hear about it anyways, because it's like, I got to see if this thing's real. Most of the time, those are just personal credit or personal credit cards first off, right? Or, it's cards that are leveraging your personal credit. Okay. So right off the bat, you are personally liable for those, right? No matter how they try to sell it, they'll say you'll get access to 0 APR credit cards, right? And yeah, sure, that might be the case, but you got to think about you're jumping into something that's completely brand new, right? You're building a business is already risky. Now you have to worry about being able to pay back money that's not yours within a year or whatever the time frame is, right? And knowing that you're going to make mistakes, right? It guaranteed you're going to make mistakes, guaranteed you're going to fail. I have never met, you can't show me one billionaire, one millionaire, a guy that has a decent amount of money that can tell you that he's never failed ever, right? Very rare. So you already have a mountain to climb, right? And then now you're borrowing money that you have to pay back within a year, 6 months, whatever the case is, right? So, I think it's not worth it. You're going to hear stories of people tell you about their successes, just like anything in life, right? People are going to tell you about their successes, but they're not going to tell you about their failures, right? And so just wanted to touch on it. His little rant is just stop putting stress on yourself and hurting your chances of success. Because what's going to happen is, and I'm not just saying this, I've literally seen people go through this, right? It's going to be fun in the beginning because you have access to $50,000 maybe, or maybe you get 20,000. Usually it's lower on the lower end. You're not going to get 150K unless everything's like perfect, right? Your credit profile is perfect. All these other factors are just like perfect, right? But typically people are going to get around 20, 30,000 and everything's good in the beginning. But then once it gets closer to, once it's like, oh, you got 2 more months to start paying off these cards, before you start having to pay interest, that's when it starts getting a little hot. And even before that case, like you're going to be paying the minimum payment on these cards, right? So if your business isn't making, let's say you have 10 cards and if your business isn't making a substantial amount of money, now you're paying, let's say $100, $200 a month off of these credit cards. That can start adding up off of 10 cards, right? You don't want to undue stress, right? Starting a business is not easy. Keep that in mind, right? Starting a business is doable, but it's not easy. There's a learning curve. I try to tell people is think about your job, right? You weren't an expert on day one at whatever job you're doing. You weren't an expert on day one, right? It took you a couple of days, maybe it took you a week, who knows, right? It took you a certain amount of time for you to be able to fully understand what was going on at your job, right? Or the first time you did whatever type of job that you're doing. Now, that was one position at your job, right? You were just doing one position. Now imagine you're starting a company where you're going to have to wear multiple hats. You're going to have to do a bunch of different things at the beginning, right? You're not going to be able to hire out people for every little thing that you're doing. So you really think that the chances are high that you're going to be perfect at everything right off the jump? No, it's going to be a learning curve. So just keep that in mind and understand that. Give yourself like a space to make mistakes. That's really the key thing that I want to touch on. Give yourself the space to be able to make mistakes, make errors, and then recover from them. That's why I always recommend you start off with cash, is because you can make those mistakes with your own money. You're going to be more diligent, more careful when you make those mistakes. And you're going to want to learn from those mistakes so it doesn't happen again, because it's your money. And then once you have a process that's working, now you can throw credit behind it, because you know that like it's just throwing gasoline on the fire, right? So anyways, that's pretty much my spiel. I'm going to be talking a lot more about that and in my other business credit videos, because I think that now we're in a landscape now where people think it's great to use credit, just to start a business. And a lot of people are failing, but you're not going to hear from those people, right? Because it's something, no one wants to admit that they failed, right? And so that's why these ideas keep flourishing, and you hear more people talking about, or more people trying to pitch the idea of just leveraging credit to start a business, right? But yeah, so that's going to be the gist of it, guys. That's everything for this video. I hope that you at least check out the Divvy Credit Builder card. And if you have any more questions, throw it down in the comments. Anything else that you'd like me to shoot, throw it down in the comments as well. And that's going to be the gist of it, guys. I appreciate y'all watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future videos. And I will see you at the next one. Peace.